Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And today we're going to be talking about a wonderful little movie that everybody loves, and it is slowly becoming a documentary, not by choice. From the masterful mind of Mike Judge, we are going to be discussing Idiocracy. We are, Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture, whether it's a movie like we're about to do, a magazine that discusses everything weird like we did last time with Weird New Jersey, some strange comic books like we have with Spawn in the past, as well as a few others, strange writers like Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, which we have also done, or even a strange television series or show such as Heil Honey, I'm Home. Yes, that show about a sitcom about Hitler. Yeah, that actually happened. That was our very first episode where our technology was quite primitive. We've since gotten a little bit better. We're trying to make tweaks to this every single day, and that's about it. There's a bunch of ways to support us, but you'll figure it out if you look in the description. I'm not going to waste anybody's time. Also, nobody cares about the goddamn notification bell on YouTube. Nobody. No one uses it. No one does it. No one even subscribes anymore. I'm not even going to bother telling you about this. If we even had YouTube, if YouTube even cared and we were monetized, this video would suddenly be demonetized completely. And YouTube they wouldn't care. Or they would shut us down. But we only have 30 subscribers, so they don't care. So we're going to give you an unadulterated podcast, free form, that nobody can challenge or censor, because guess what? We don't have any sponsors on this. But if you do want to sponsor us, then send us an email at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. And if not, who gives a shit? That's the news. Here's the weather. And you are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Rob, explain to the good people in digital media device land why Idiocracy is unbelievably becoming a documentary, and just what exactly is this thing?
Well, Idiocracy is a 2006 film by Mike Judge, as you mentioned before, who is famously known as the creator of a number of different things, including Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, and also the voice of numerous characters on those shows. He's also done other movies as well, but Idiocracy was one of his big movies that became very popular as almost like a cult film at first, but now has kind of evolved into this, like you said, documentary. And the basic premise of the film is a soldier named Joe gets frozen in this experimental army procedure that makes him go into a hibernetic freeze.
I would say soldier in the loosest sense of the word. I mean, he kind of is just a guy in the army with a desk job.
Yeah, he's basically supposed to be the most average man they could possibly find. And he gets frozen in this capsule and sent 500 years into the future. Well, not really sent. He just sits in the capsule for 500 years because everyone forgets about the project, because the guy who's running the project gets arrested for running a prostitution ring. So everyone forgets about the project, and he wakes up 500 years later, along with the prostitute named Rita, played by Maya Rudolph, who is also part of the experiment. Basically, they pay her pimp to use her in the experiment.
Upgrade always comes back.
Yes.
And if you stay to the end of the movie, he actually does.
Yes. Upgrade is the pimp's name, by the way.
Yes, with two D's.
Yes. So anyway, there's a short explanation in the beginning of the movie that basically what happens is over the 500 years that Joe is sleeping, humanity becomes dumber and dumber because the smart people stop having kids for a number of reasons because, they are like, oh, the economy is bad, all this other stuff. And the stupid people just continue to have kids as is the way.
Of course they do.
They just don't care. And basically what happens is that the world gets populated and the average IQ of the entire human race goes down significantly. And it's basically like humanity enters another dark age essentially because everyone's just so stupid. And they explain like Fuddruckers slowly changes into butt fuckers. Like Fuddruckers is a restaurant that serves burgers. For those who don't know,
does Fuddruckers still exist?
I don't even know if it actually still exists. I know they filed
for bankruptcy at some point, but I don't know if somebody else bought them and there's like a handful of them left.
There used to be one not far from my house, so I've actually eaten there before. But I haven't seen one in a long time.
I remember passing it every time that we would go, and every time I'd either go up or leaving your house, and every time we'd call it buttfuckers.
Yeah, basically. So according to this, Fuddruckers still does exist. It was sold to Black Titan Franchise Systems in 2021. I have no idea. I guess it's like probably a restaurant chain. I'm sure they own like a number of other chains.
They're probably like a private equity company or something.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Joe wakes up 500 years in the future after his capsule crashes through Fredo's apartment. And Fredo, we come to know later because he actually is Joe's defense. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So Joe wakes up. He's kind of wandering around this dystopian future where everyone's stupid. The entire world is like consumed by like ultra consumerism, base and commercialism, and basically everything is like sponsored by something else, like McDonald's. They go, at one point in the movie they go to Costco and it's literally a city, and Fredo mentions that he got his law degree at Costco. So
complete with a red light district that features a Starbucks that gives hand jobs.
Yes. And a greeter that says "Welcome to Costco, I love you." So
his shirt, he has a T-shirt that says that too.
Yes. So basically, Joe ends up getting arrested because he doesn't have this tattoo on him, which is basically it's like they've gotten rid of ID cards in the future, and you just get like a tattoo with a barcode, and you get everything you do, you scan it, and it's like that's your identity.
Which could happen.
Yeah, that actually might happen eventually. I don't know if it's going to be a barcode or probably like an RFID chip or some crap like that.
I have no idea, but it's something that like a lot of Bible people are, and like just really conspiracy theorists and doomsday folks out there are like constantly weary of, because it's in the book of Revelation that there will be some kind of a marking on people.
Yeah, it's like the mark of the beast, some kind of thing like that.
Basically. Allegedly, but
allegedly.
Who knows? Hopefully when that stuff happens, we'll be dead.
Yeah. Well, it might happen sooner rather than later,
That's what they say. But that is also what they've always said.
Yeah, that's true. So Joe walks into a hospital to try to like figure out what's going on, and like obviously like when they figure out that he doesn't have this like tattoo, everyone freaks out and he ends up getting arrested. And lo and behold, the guy who he crashed through his apartment, Fredo, becomes his defense attorney. And of course, Fredo pretty much like railroads him because like he like is like, yeah, he broke my apartment. Like,
well, basically they all do, and like the judge really doesn't care.
No,
the judicial
complete joke.
It's awful. It's worse than it is now.
Yes.
And like even the even Medicare and like everything is just it's just been destroyed completely.
Yes.
And just eroded and corrupted to the point where like there's people we're like there's people inside of what's supposed to be a hospital like gambling for free healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah. And the doctor is like Justin Long plays the doctor, and he's like basically like this huge stoner who just doesn't give a shit. And he's like, "Yo, dude, you know your shit's like my scanner is telling me like your shit's fucked up," and it's like basically like there's no medical terms or anything anymore. It's just it's like the dumbest people you knew in high school like decided to like open up a hospital basically.
And are running the world.
Yes, and it's quickly becoming reality over the last like few years. The dumber
Sadly,
people are unfortunately starting to run the world.
well, they bred the most.
Yeah, that's true.
Like me and the missus have conversations where we're unsure about whether or not we would like to have children.
Yeah,
And similar to the people in the beginning who are like, oh, it's not the right time, or we don't know, or we're focusing on our careers or whatever, or what have you.
yeah,
Where like you have people just like on their eighth kid
yes,
on like, and like neither person wants to work because welfare is like working out for them, or like, or they both work, but they're both terrible parents.
yeah.
Or
And I
or
think
whatever the situation may be. Like it's not great, and like the kids are obviously screwed up.
right,
Like
and
my sister works with a lot of autistic children, and a lot of the problems that she sees is a lot of these issues come down to bad parenting.
yes.
Where these were like, had they had decent parents, these kids wouldn't have any of these developmental issues at all.
Right, and
It's really sad.
It's not like this is like a new thing. This has been going on for a long time, and I think
Right.
it's kind of a commentary on the welfare state in some ways, because a lot of the like these problems were created when the welfare state was created, because people realized, hey, I could just sit at home and have kids and not work and get free money from the government. And like the people that were doing that, unfortunately, were like the dumbest people. Or it's like the people that live in like trailer parks and like really slummy inner cities and stuff that like do this kind of thing. And like they have like terrible education systems, because like the education funding in those areas of the country is awful. So
Yeah.
you end up having like just like really dumb people having a lot of kids that end up being also really dumb. And
And the
I think
problem is, it's not their fault.
no, it's not.
Like
It's just the
that's like
situation they're
that's
born
the
into.
that's the worst part is
Yeah.
that it's like a politician would like you to believe that these people actually had a choice, but they didn't.
No.
That's honestly that's the number one problem with the whole system, is that these people are like the people who are, the people who the people who have the most problems and are like at the bottom of society. They never had a choice or a prayer. It's not their
No.
fault. It's the system is so badly rigged and corrupted that it's a miracle that these people even survive into old age.
Yeah, it's been generations and generations of people into the same system. And even before like the welfare state was created, it was people that lived in poor areas, usually of the South, that yeah, they didn't like have the welfare state necessarily, but they all they had was like low wage factory jobs or like mining jobs or something like that. And then like when all that industrialization stopped, and like we moved away from mining and industry and like steel mills, and it happened a lot in like Pennsylvania and the Midwest. They say the Rust Belt is like the big place where this happens. These towns basically died and just became like welfare pits basically, because like they didn't have the factories or the mines anymore, and people were still living there. And these are people that had been there, their families had been there for generations upon generations, and now all of a sudden they don't have the opportunity to work in the factory anymore. So what do? They just decide to sit there and collect government money, because what else can they do? They can't leave the town. They don't have the money to go to college or put their kids through college, and there's no job opportunities. It's like a hopeless, like bleak situation. And this has been going on for probably about the last century in this
Right.
country, at least since the Depression started.
Right. And once again, not to beat a dead horse, but and not to, and like, we don't like to talk politics on this show, and we try not to, but I mean, this is kind of like,
It's a political film, so we have to kind
it
of
is. It's all
into it a little bit.
I mean, it's also the root of the problem, because politicians obviously know this.
Yes.
So that's why the Rust Belt generally has the biggest impact on any
Presidential election.
presidential election than anything else. Like,
Yep.
that's why the popular vote doesn't matter. That's why the bigger states like New York and California don't really make that much of a difference. That's why you have a lot of swing states,
Yep.
because they have a lot of areas like this, and then you have the
Yes.
Rust Belt itself, which takes the lion's share of the electoral votes. And
Hmm.
that's why the presidents go there and they make up whatever they want, and they say, or like presidential candidates go there, they make false promises, they say whatever their base wants or
Yes.
whatever the people in the Rust Belt want. And that's why a lot of the times you'll see a campaign and you'll say, well, I don't understand. I don't like half of the crap that's in here, or I don't like any of the stuff that's in here, or I like that one thing, but why is everything else so stupid? And that's why, because it's
Yes.
not what you care about, it's what the Rust Belt seems like it would go for at the
Hmm.
time. And that's why you have presidents that you may not disagree with at all, because like you could just blame the Rust Belt,
Hmm.
honestly, and it's not the Rust Belt's fault. It's because it's being preyed upon by politicians. And I'm not saying it's one way or the other politically. You can decide for yourself, but that's just the fact of the matter is on all sides they hone in on the Rust Belt, and the Rust Belt is kept poor and stupid on purpose.
Yes. And especially, and this is why they don't will ever never, like, the whole like welfare system was created with the best of intentions, but oftentimes the road to hell is paved with the best intentions. And what happens
Yes.
now is politicians use it as like, as like the carrot on the stick to get people to keep voting for them, basically.
Yep.
And it's all like, it's all a system set up to keep people down, so that way they can keep voting for the same people who are keeping them down, because those people are promising, oh, we'll give you a little bit bigger of a bite of the pie if you vote for me. And that's basically what happens, and it's a
And then
vicious cycle that continues forever until we
right.
have idiocracy.
Yes, and of course they don't. Of course they never
Right.
give them that carrot because
No,
they were
of
never
course not.
going to in the first place. But
Yes.
then they just blame the other party,
Yes.
and that's what keeps the cycle from continuing.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
anyway, yes, that is why we have idiocracy and why we end up having a president like Jesus, what is his name?
Macho. Hold
Hector
on.
I think it's Herbert
No, it's
Camacho Mountain
Dwayne.
Dew.
All right, his full name: Dwayne
Yes,
Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho,
that's
who
what it is.
is played
Yes.
by Terry Crews. He is a professional wrestler and ex porn star, and he's the president of the United States in this future. Um, and like, really, we're much farther away. We already had Donald Trump, a freaking reality TV show star,
Who
and
was in the WWE
yes,
Hall of Fame.
exactly. So we're really only like a few steps away from having President Camacho in real life.
He had an affair with at least one porn star. We don't
Yes.
know if there's been any others. So
Yeah.
uh,
So we're really only like 2 degrees of separation from President Camacho right
oh,
by now.
oh no.
So Joe gets sent to jail. Uh he gets forced to get this tattoo to be identification. Of course, he screws up the process, and because like the AI is as stupid as like humanity is, they think that his name is Not Sure because he says not sure to one of the questions, and the AI just assumes immediately that it's not sure. The AI computer, which is voiced by Tom Kenny, by the way, which is hilarious.
Yes, I think half the things are voiced by Tom Kenny minus
Yes.
the narrator.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is I think the narrator is Mike Judge, right? I think.
No.
No, it's not.
He does have a handful of like lines in the movie that he like sprinkled in.
Yes.
Like he does have like he does have, I think he has like 65 speaking lines or something like that, just littered throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But the narrator, I don't know who the narrator actually is. Let me check really quickly. But I think it's Ron Perlman actually. Cuz
No, it's not Ron Perlman.
it sounds like Ron Perlman.
Yeah, it's not. It's it might be just like that voice actor, that like guy who used to do all the movie trailers back in the 90s.
It's Earl Mann.
Oh, okay. Is it I think it's that guy, right?
No, you're thinking of Don LaFontaine.
Oh,
That
okay.
is not him.
Okay.
He may have passed away by then.
That's true. He did pass away. So after he gets his tattoo, he's sentenced to prison, which he promptly breaks out of by basically just going up to the guard and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm supposed to be out of here." Like, it's just hilarious. Joe is a man of average intelligence by today's standards, but because like people are so stupid, he's like literally like he's the smartest person in this world. In this future, he is by far the smartest person in this future, and he's able to easily outsmart people. He basically gets out of jail by saying, "Hey, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm actually supposed to be getting out today." And the guard treats him like he's an idiot, like, "Hey, stupid, you're supposed to be in this line,"
Yeah.
like, and he just gets out, just walks out of jail.
Also, they don't understand anything that he says, even though
Yes.
he's not using big words. He's just not an idiot.
Yeah, he's not
Like,
everybody basically speaks in like a disjointed like form of like slang, essentially. Like regular English is like completely gone out the window, and people just like
it's just a strange hillbilly slang.
yes, yeah,
and like basically they don't like they just like they assume because he's like they assume that he's just like well, I don't know if they assume that he's gay or they like just say that he's like talking like like they say, "Oh, you're talking like a gay person," basically. Yeah. I don't feel like using the word, but like they essentially use that. I mean, also it's a slur, and also it's Pride Month, and I don't want to get people angry at me.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure enough people are mad at us for crazy things that we may have said because these are characters that we say. These are characters that we portray.
Yeah.
But anyway, that doesn't matter.
Well,
mine is a man slowly going insane, for those who don't know. It's a word that
they use to describe cigarettes in England. Let's just
Yes, we'll put it that way. And they're just like, "Hey, stop talking like an English cigarette."
Yeah.
Or something like that. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And like whenever they mock him, like another person thinks that there's like, "Holy crap, I thought there were two of you." And it's like it's this ongoing like thing that it's this ongoing gag that like they just assume that, which is kind of funny because like there are like some studies that are linking homosexuality to a sign of intelligence, actually, which yeah, so that's something that that Mike Judge may have inadvertently gotten right, which are a lot of things, like Crocs, actually.
Yes.
In the movie, everybody is wearing Crocs, and that's because a lot of the budgets were cut from the movie because like it kind of goes down to a lot of the movie's sponsors like Costco and Starbucks and everything. They didn't like the way that they were portrayed in the film.
Yeah.
So the Fox executives buried the movie.
Yes.
Like they didn't give it any marketing, minus one poster that they put in theaters that the head of the marketing at the time doesn't even remember ever seeing. And they never they never made a trailer for it. They never did any promotion. Even in like the newspapers, they called it Untitled Mike Judge Movie.
Yeah.
So like, and they only ran it in I think 138 cinemas across the nation just to fulfill the contractual obligation. But they absolutely buried the movie because the sponsors were like pissed off about it.
Yes.
And so they intentionally tried to kill the movie in the theaters, and in its initial release, it only made $500,000.
Right.
But when it did end up getting released, and we'll talk about that later on home video and everything, it's become a cult classic to this day. Yes. But they got the Crocs because many budgets got cut during the filming of this movie because, well, the studio tried to kill it. But they also were like contractually obligated to release this movie, so they just buried it the best way that they could, which succeeded at the time, or at least it succeeded in a theatrical sense. Over time, Mike Judge won in the long run, but they cut a lot of budgets, including costuming and a lot of special effects budgets were cut as well. So by cutting the budget of the costuming. They found this I think it was the head of the costume or wardrobe. She goes over to Mike Judge and she's like, "Well, what can we do about the costumes?" And she's like, "I found this startup called Crocs, and they have the most hideous shoes that you could possibly imagine. There's no possible." And he looked at it and he was like, you don't think that these might get popular by the time we release this movie, do you? Because this was, I think he wrote it in 2000, like he started writing in like 2001, and then around 2004 they like started filming, and then it got released in 2006. But Mike Judge was like, you don't think that these like might take off by the time we film these, do? But by the time we release this, do you? And she was like, have you seen the shoes? There isn't a chance in hell. Which now they become popular because of things I don't understand or would like to, but they've become popular shoes. But at the time, they just like they realized that it was actually cheaper to just buy like 600 pairs of Crocs
Mm-hmm.
and just give them to everybody instead of like, and they actually would save money rather than exhaust whatever budget they had.
Yeah.
So that's just really funny that ended up being a thing.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Crocs,
And
to
also
this day, people still wear Crocs. Like,
well, yeah, and also the sexy Starbucks has become a thing. There not it's Starbucks.
oh,
You can't get a handy from a Starbucks unless, well, you're very special friends with someone who works there, but you wouldn't get that as a regular customer. You can't go in and get any sort of sexual favors along with a cup of coffee at a Starbucks. But in Geneva there is a cafe that well, you can get a BJ and your morning cup of, well, coffee, and the cafe is just called Cafe Fellatio. I am not speaking from experience, but I have seen this when watching videos about Idiocracy and just doing my research on Idiocracy.
mhm.
But if you live in Geneva and you've been to this cafe, I guess on our YouTube channel, or if you want to let us know on Facebook or anywhere else, um, let us know how your experience went. But please don't be detailed. Just either say this was a good idea at the time, or I spent too much money at that place and I have problems now. Or just say the coffee was great, and keep the experience to yourself.
Yes.
That might be the best course of action. Just let us know how the coffee was at Cafe Fellatio. That is the name of the place. I'm not saying that as a joke. Although I wish I had. I wish I wrote that joke, but it's real. And it was predicted by Idiocracy.
Well, a number of other things were predicted by Idiocracy too, and actually, during the 2016 election cycle, the creators, Mike Judge and Ethan Cohen, Ethan Cohen, he's one of the writers, along with Mike Judge, commented that basically, like, you know, that Donald Trump was essentially President Camacho, and
in some ways,
Mike Judge made the comment that I'm no prophet. I was off by 490 years, essentially, because it was only 10 years later that, you know, it basically, you know, his thing came true. You know, there's like a number of like comparisons that could be made from Idiocracy to like modern times of like shit that's like happened, like that. It's like, oh my God, this is like Idiocracy, essentially.
yes.
Interestingly enough, I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077, and there's a lot of stuff in Cyberpunk 2077 that remind me a lot of Idiocracy, because it's like this dystopian future where, like, you know, hyper corporatism is like taking over America, and like commercialism and craziness.
Well, that's basically come true, but you could see that was going to happen.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Like, if you look at everywhere you look is like commercials for products, and it's just like over the top.
Not to mention their pretend care for the LGBTQ plus community.
Oh my God, it's this cringiest thing, most disingenuous thing ever. Is all these companies on Pride Month that change their logos to rainbow flags. Meanwhile, the Saudi Arabian like Twitter page of these companies or like headquarters don't do that, because you know it's illegal in Saudi Arabia. So it's such bullshit. It's like hilarious.
Let me give you an example. I was at the local Rite Aid the other day, and I went to the front of I was about to go pay, and there was a big bag of share size Skittles, right? And they were Pride themed Skittles, and the Skittle bags had rainbows and such. And it was like, oh, a dollar will be donated to the GLAD Foundation, which is a LGBTQ foundation. Um, and I looked and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll get one of these. And as I'm about to pay for the Skittles, I realized that the Skittles are $1 more expensive than a regular share size.
Of course.
And it's like, oh, $1 will be donated, but not our dollars, not
Yeah.
Skittles or Mars.
Mars, yeah.
Yeah, not our money, but your money that
Yes.
we've just jacked up the price on this thing.
Of course.
So it's like, oh yeah, okay, so I guess you really care, huh?
Yeah, it's just it's fucking bullshit. It's such disingenuous, and again, another thing of Idiocracy, like basically like showing this commercialism, like we find out later in the movie that they're
The Costco like tagline, the Costco slogan, "Welcome to Costco, I love you," is like a clear disingenuous
yes,
corporatism.
yes.
And also, like, when they go to the hospital, like, you hear, like, the Tom Kenny voiceover, like, oh, no, we care about your health. We hope you're not so sick. Come here to get better. And it's like,
yeah,
couldn't be further from the truth.
Well,
Because in the lobby, there's the guy gambling for healthcare to hopefully fix his, like, gouged out eye.
yeah. Well, it goes all the way up to, like, you find out later that they're watering crops with a sports drink called Brondo, the thirst mutilator. And it's like so bad that, like, when Joe suggests, like, hey, why don't we use water to water the crops? Everyone's like, what do you mean, like out the toilet? Like, and they're like, they keep repeating the phrase, it's got what plants crave, electrolytes. They don't even know what electrolytes are. They just keep saying it's got what plants crave. And they're like, well, and then Joe's like, what is an electrolyte? And it's like, it's what's in Brondo. They don't even know.
Which if they had read it, well, actually, I don't even know if they even bother with nutrition facts during this era, which I wouldn't be surprised if those just aren't on the thing.
Yeah.
And even if they because nobody would be smart enough to like even understand that or to like even figure out what the nutrition content is in these things. But you see that nobody really knows, so they just keep repeating the slogan, like you said.
Yes.
But also, like, since their only source of water is the toilet, like, how do these people not have like kidney stones?
That's a good question.
Because like when Joe, aka Not Sure, shows up at Fredo's house, like, he's eating a tub of butter.
Yeah.
It's just butter.
Yeah.
And you see that throughout the film. There's no garbage. Like, there's no plan for garbage. There's no sanitation or anything.
Piles of garbage, like, all over the place.
Honestly,
like,
I'm surprised we don't see insects all over the place.
Yeah. Buildings are, like, collapsing and, like, tied together with ropes, essentially, to stay standing. It's bad.
Cars are just driving off of, like, uncompleted freeways into to their deaths.
Yes.
And, like, there's parts where the police are looking for Joe, and Fredo, and he convinces Fredo to help him because he's like going to take him to a time machine to go back in time and fix all this. Which, spoiler alert, it's just a broken down ride in an amusement park called the Time Machine, where everything is reenacted with dinosaurs, and all of it is historically inaccurate.
Yes. And actually, Fredo actually makes like one of the most intelligent statements in the movie at that point, where he's like, "What do you think? Time travel is real? Man, you're dumber than I thought." Like, basically, like, you can't go back in time. You're screwed. You're just stuck there.
Yeah, but anyway, like the thing I was getting, it was like, it's basically the world's basically become a police state at this point because of how stupid everybody is. That they've probably just like voted it into law, and it was probably like not like, unlike today where it's like cleverly like hidden into a bill that like it's not specified, or it's like not noticed by the or reported on intentionally by like mainstream media, it's like, or anything, or really any media, to it's usually cleverly tucked into a bill that like in like one line that has nothing to do with anything else. Like it would be in like a I don't know, like a housing bill that says, "Oh, we're gonna like we're gonna do all these things for housing. We're gonna like do all these good things for housing," and then there's one line that just says, "And we will stop all like." And we'll stop all education for like higher learning or something
Mhm.
like that. But it'll just be like one sentence in between all these other things, and like it'll get snuck in there, and then it'll get like signed off, and then all of a sudden you'll go to college, like you'll try to go to college, and you'll realize that there's no college to go to, and you'll just say, how did that happen? And you'll basically get tricked into voting for it. Where like during the Idiocracy era, they probably just like, it was probably just the bill in two sentences was, we are a police state now, and they voted on it because they didn't understand what it meant,
Mhm.
because whoever was in office probably just said it's a good idea. That's
Yeah.
not explicitly stated, but that's probably what happened in this universe, which hopefully doesn't become our universe.
Well,
I mean, in 500 years, it won't matter for you and I, but
maybe not. Maybe we'll be immortal.
I
Maybe
don't
we'll
know if
unlock immortality by then.
I don't think I want that.
Well, I don't want to live in that future if that's the case.
No, if that's what that means, I don't want it.
I'm just gonna fly off. I'm gonna like get on the alien spacecraft and fly off into space, and then I won't have to worry about it.
I hope so. Anyway, back to what happens.
So,
Oh,
so they
I
go to
thought you knew.
Costco.
Okay, you do know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they
So
go to Costco.
they go to Costco to find the basically to go to to find the time machine. Um, they and eventually Joe is like rearrested again. They find him, but he's taken to the White House instead of back to prison because like of how high his IQ test is. Because the IQ test he took in prison was like literally determined he was the smartest man in the world. So they bring him back to the White House. And he's appointed Secretary of the Interior by President Camacho because he's literally the smartest man in the world, basically, by their standards, because of how stupid everybody is. So and they're basically like, hey, help us, Mr. Smart Man. We don't know how to, well, like the crops are failing and like everything's like destroyed, the economy is destroyed. We don't know what to do. Help us, like fix everything because you're the smartest man in the world. And of course, Joe is really not that smart. He's just like of average intelligence. And he's like basically the ideas that he does come up with, they like balk at, and they think he's stupid for like even suggesting it. Like I said, with this, like instead of watering the crops with Brondo, watering it with water, and they're like, "What do you mean, like out the toilet?" Like they think it's just like stupid. And the people are too stupid to even listen to him.
Right. But also we then find out that like by doing this, which they do agree to do, but freaking Herbert Camacho, but like President Camacho gives him a week to do everything, and he
Yes,
also like overpromises what he can do, and he gives him a week to do it all, like fix the Dust Bowl and all this, like because there's a drought obviously, and
yes,
then like that he'll like fix the Dust Bowl, he'll restore the crops, he'll figure something out for the garbage or all these other, like every problem that they have, he like promises that he'll get it done in a week, and he's like, that's, and like Joe is like, that's impossible, these things don't take a week, and he's like, well, you have to do it, otherwise you're gonna go to prison forever and then you're gonna die or something.
yeah.
So like he's kind of screwed.
Yes. So they actually do decide to put his like watering the crops with like water into effect. The only thing is that of course it doesn't fix it right away because it takes like a little bit for the the plants to actually absorb the water and like come back up. And immediately Brondo basically owns half the country. They own the FDA, the FCC, and the USDA, and like half the country is employed by Brondo. So
To the
when
point
like
where they change the entire food pyramid to just Brondo.
yes. So when it gets to this point where like uh like they find out that they're not going to water the crops with Brondo anymore, Brondo's stock like crashes completely, and like they have to, and it like automatically lays off like half the people in the country.
Because it's
Like so,
AI.
yeah. So like it like literally riots like happen all over the place, and of course they call for Joe's head because he's the one that's like seen as responsible for it. So
But how could he know that? Nobody bothered to
exactly.
tell him. And
Yes.
also, like, the economy is just bad in that time period, and like everything costs like a ludicrous amount of money that nobody has.
Yes.
Like everything costs like billions of dollars, and they claim that he stole it from the hospital, where he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And it's just a mess.
Yeah, and even like when people like there's a scene in the beginning where like a woman's trying to get like a thing of fries from McDonald's, and like it just like the little like cardboard thing comes out, and like no fries come out because it's out of fries because they're like there's a food shortage, and she still has to pay for it even though she didn't get any fries. And so like, she like kicks the machine, and like all of a sudden like these guns come down and like are like they arrest her for like vandalism essentially because
And the machine gaslights her too.
yes. It says that she's a terrible mother because she can't feed her children. Like,
And then you get the corporate disingenuous thing again, because it says we care about children and feeding children.
yeah, it's like your child is now placed into the custody of the McDonald's
Yes.
Corporation. So Joe is sentenced to die in a monster truck demolition derby. Which has a Beef Supreme is the executioner, I guess you could say. He's quote unquote rehabilitation officer, but he's driving this giant friggin' monster truck with like a massive like friggin' drill dildo attached to it, basically. And while Joe is basically driving this like Volkswagen Beetle with like a giant rubber dildo like sticking out the top of it.
And also a giant rock that was attached to him so that he doesn't escape prison again.
Yeah, so he can't it can barely even do anything.
It's just put onto the engine of the car, so like somehow, so like the car is like on its last legs, and he can't do a damn thing.
Yes. So basically, like Joe is trying to just stall for time while Rita and Frito like try to like look into like the crops, and they find that the crops are actually growing finally. So they steal a TV camera and they show it on the Jumbotron, and people realize, oh my god, like they're actually growing, like Joe's plan is working. So Camacho stops the whole thing and gives them a pardon. So they finally go to the time machine, and they find out that it's fake, that it's just a ride, like you said before. So Joe and Rita decide to stay in the future. And
I mean, they don't really have a choice,
right? Obviously. So then Joe is elected president after President Camacho is, his term is done.
Well, I will say that there's some like really interesting progressive things that this society has actually done. Like they're like, I don't know if they just like dumb out of it where they don't care about these things anymore, because they're really only fixated on just like eating eating toilet humor and like, well, just porn, really. Like the whole society only cares about those things. And also money. The term "I like money" is like repeated constantly. Yeah. Even though the financial literacy is like not even close to being there, nor is any literacy at all, really.
Yeah.
And like to the point where like the number one movie in the country is just called Ass, and it's a movie, and it's just like 2 hours of a butt farting.
Yes.
And which, like, apparently when they were filming that movie, when they were filming that scene, the test audience that they used were legitimately laughing at this, and Mike Judge was like baffled.
No,
because he was like, why didn't we just? He's like, why isn't this just the movie then? If people gave that reaction,
yeah,
like he was just so flabbergasted at that, like, just how stupid people have already become. He was like almost mortified at the same time. Also, another thing that movie predicted: OnlyFans. Because Rita decides that she's still going to be a prostitute in the year, 2550, and she just convinces some guy who's like, because she doesn't know where she is, so she just like goes to take the phone from some guy, and she's like, hey, I'll let you like sleep with me if you let me call the phone, but I'm still gonna charge you by the hour, and I charge $200 an hour. And the guy's like, okay, sure. And he's like, but we're gonna do it, right? And she's like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna do it. And then like like it cuts to like later on, the guy is following her around, and he's still like with like thinking that there's the promise of like any sexual exchange that's going to occur where it's clearly not going to, but she's like, I'm still charging you, by the way. And he's like, okay. And she's like, why don't you go home? And he's like, okay, I'll still charge you while you're home. And he's like, okay, sure. So like that basically predicted the intelligence of the people using OnlyFans who are not the service workers who have figured it out. So Mike Judge predicted that too.
Yeah.
But as you were.
Um. So, Joe ends up being elected president, and him and Rita end up having kids, and it's stated that like they're like some of the most intelligent kids that have been born ever, like since like Joe's time basically. So like there's kind of like this like hope for the future that maybe like smart people will come back, but then of course it goes to it cuts to Frito, who like marries some like other woman, and like they have like the stupidest kids ever. Yeah,
Well,
or
he marries
eight women and fathers
yes.
32 of the world's stupidest children.
Yes, that's what it is. Oh,
Yes.
that's what I was gonna say. The like the little progressive things that like this dumber culture has done that like were actually kind of smart. Um, and it may just be because they're too stupid to care about these things, but like one of their top leaders is a woman, and there's no like sexism there. Like they actually listen to her, and they just assume that she's like really smart because she has this title. And they don't like, so there's no like chastising her. There's no saying, oh well, she's really bad at this because she's a woman, which you hear all the time from idiots.
Mm-hmm.
And you like and like there's none of that there. Also, like they elected the president because they thought that he was the smartest person at the time, and all of the people in power they believe to be the smartest people in the country working on fixing America's problems, which that's what it should be, instead of people who are just power mad and don't actually care about fixing anything like we have now.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when like they find out that Joe is the smartest man in the world, they immediately give him a job at the White House, and they're like, we need you to fix the problems because
Yes.
you're the smartest man, which that actually makes sense. We should have
Exactly.
the smartest minds should be working on fixing all of these economic and like just situational problems of everyday life for the average person. And on top of that, like when President Camacho's tenure ends, he gives the job to Joe, and he's happy about it. He's not like, there is no, I'm fighting against this guy for, like, there is no election campaign that we see. It's just, I'm making him the president now because he's the smartest guy. That
Yeah.
makes total and complete sense. But
Yeah, exactly.
everything, every other policy is as screwed up and stupid and broken as it is. But these things are the few smart things that they've done in this culture.
Well, maybe it shows that humanity really isn't this like a lost cause yet. They still kind of like realize like, oh shit, we need smart people to fix everything, even if they don't want to listen to them at first.
Right. It's like they don't. It's like they devolve intellectually, but emotionally they do in some ways.
It's like they devolve like the freaking Goombas in the Super Mario Brothers, the original Super Mario Brothers movie with Dennis Hopper.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But it's just real. But I just thought that part was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I think it shows that like there is some hope, maybe, and maybe it's Mike Judge's like hope for humanity is that like eventually maybe we will pull out of this like stupid phase and people will actually like try to like fix things and realize that you need smart people to like to have kids and repopulate the earth and keep the balance instead of like these idiots that have like a dozen kids by like 3 different wives, like friggin' Nick Cannon or whatever, who has how many kids by how many different friggin' women.
Oh
Like,
God. I don't know. For the record, I don't know if Nick Cannon is a smart person or not.
Yeah.
I don't know Nick Cannon's IQ, so I'm not gonna call him an idiot. But Nick Cannon likes to have lots of children,
Yeah.
and well, I guess that's okay if they're smart children, which some of them will probably be. I don't know about all of them. That the jury's out on all of Nick Cannon's kids.
Yeah.
Which I've heard that he's had like 35 more today. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
These are unconfirmed by my sources, which are nobody.
It's gonna be like one of those situations like where like like 500 years in the future, how like now like it's like 16 or it's like a huge percentage of European men can trace their lineage directly back to Genghis Khan. It's gonna be like that except with Nick Cannon. It's gonna be like 10% of American men and women can trace their lineage back directly to Nick Cannon.
I mean that might be one day.
Yeah.
We don't know. Also, who knows how many more children Nick Cannon will father?
Yeah.
In fact, he just had 2 now, as we were speaking. But
oh no,
I mean 2 from one person. I don't know everybody else. I'm not up to date with the hospital records. They're also charging me.
they have
right
a whole
now.
filing cabinet just for him.
They probably do. They probably have a filing cabinet and or database. It's probably quite historic. There might even be an entire building dedicated to Nick Cannon's children and all of that. I cannot confirm. My medical sources are, well, I don't have any. My only medical source is really just my doctor, who told me that my blood pressure is good, but I'm fat. That's what Doctor Such and Such told me. She said your stress levels are perfect. You don't seem to be stressed out at all, but you're fat. Just bluntly like that. That's what happens when you have a doctor in New York City.
Well,
they don't care.
Yep.
But at least she was honest. Or he. I can't tell you. Or they. I don't know. It's Pride Month. They're everything. So, Idiocracy. Does this hold up? I think it does, but
Yeah.
I think it's also somewhat bleak because so many of these things have actually happened unintentionally.
Yeah, it holds
And
up in a
it's-
bad way.
Yeah, and I mean, the movie's not even 20 years old yet.
Yeah,
It's
and
almost 20, but we've already seen so many of these things come to pass that it's like frightening. And
Yeah,
a
so
lot
what
of these
is
things
it-
happened in the past 10 years.
I mean, exactly. What's it going to look like in 500 years? Like the actual like time frame.
Like I said, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I would like to think that future generations will change things for the better, and politicians of future generations will actually change things for the better, and they'll outlaw things like insider trading and lobbying and all these other things that lead to corruption. But I don't know.
They won't.
Honestly, it's more likely that they'll just get sucked into the same system and repeat the abuse on everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Or maybe they'll go in with good intentions and they'll realize it's impossible to have those happen, and they'll just become one with the system, and they'll just sadly give up any of their like power to actually change anything. But I don't know. I'm not going to be around in 500 years, so I can't say.
It's ironic because you have like Donald Trump, who became the president, and obviously he exploited the system, and he has done so for his whole life. But he was the first politician to actually say, "Yeah, I do it. I exploit it," and so does every single donor that all these other politicians do. So it's hilarious because
I'll give him that.
He was exactly. He's the first one to say, "Yeah, I do it. I exploit the system for my own benefit," and so does everybody else.
He still managed to win.
Right, but he's like, but at the same time, he's not going to change it because he admitted that he does it. So
Yeah.
It's like it's ironic that he'll freaking come out and say it. Of course, he won't change it, but it's just the system won't ever change because the people that benefit from it. So why would they change it?
Yes, exactly. And it would and changing it would only benefit them a little bit less. So
Exactly.
and why give up all that? Why
Yes.
give up why give up 4% of your power when you can have all 100?
Yep.
So I don't know. Likely that things will not change, but you never know.
Yep.
Hopefully there is a bright future. But let's be realistic. No, there isn't.
Yeah, we're
Idiocracy is going to become a documentary.
yep, the
We
dystopian cyberpunk future that we live in.
The number one movie in the country will be simply called Ass.
I'm surprised it isn't already.
We are going to have a show if we don't already have a show in some country that we've never heard of or on public access called Ow My Balls. Um, I don't know. Gatorade may take over the world somehow after merging with Amazon somehow.
Yep.
I don't like none of these things would surprise me.
I mean, there's already plenty of weird pornography, so I wouldn't be surprised if like it becomes just like a woman cutting a steak with her friggin' toes,
Oh God.
like fucking Fredo watches. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
none
that
of
exists already.
I probably does. I have I'm not gonna go I'm not gonna find out if this does. Anybody who sends us all the weird things on Facebook, please do not do this. Don't research it. Any of the people who watch or listen to this show, please don't do that. Don't find out if that exists. We don't want to know. We will never do an episode on that. That's too weird. So that's right out.
Yeah.
We're not going to ban you or anything, but we will not. Well, I mean, how could we ban you from listening to our show? But no, we won't address whether or not that is a thing because we're not. We'll ignore all requests for these things. We don't want to know about that one. This will not even get the Lulu treatment, which you can give us $10,000 and we'll be forced to review that album on an episode by going over to patreon.com/why does this exist, where we also happen to have articles written by sometimes us, but mostly our pal Tony, who does a great job. And you can just give us some money. We'll let you into the Discord server, and that's about it. And you can also find us wherever you can find any other podcast. And you can find us on social through Facebook. And that's really that. You can also email us in private and tell us we're doing a good job at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. Or just send us money, and that would be great.
Yes.
That's all my promotional things. And if you're on our YouTube channel, I guess just watch it and interact with it somehow, because nobody cares about that stupid bell or the subscribe, because nobody does. So that's all that I have to say about that. I would say eat your Wheaties, but you're more likely to drink Brondo because it's got electrolytes, and plants crave electrolytes.
Yes. Brondo, the thirst mutilator.
Yes, and if you're going to a monster truck rally, well, hopefully, what the hell is this guy's name?
Beef Supreme.
Beef Supreme. Hopefully, Beef Supreme is not the guy driving the truck. Or if you're attending what Monster Truck Derby, or as they call it in the future, rehabilitation. Hopefully, you will not be dealing with Beef Supreme. Hopefully, you'll be dealing with El Toro Loco, or Gravedigger, or Megalodon, or any of those other classic monster trucks. But long story short, this movie has aged very well, and it ages better each year. But it's still very funny, but it also becomes even more bleak each year as more and more things inadvertently become true.
Yep.
But yeah, Mike Judge basically won out in the end because it's probably made a boatload of money over the past like near 20 years.
Yes.
Because despite not making any money in its initial release, because the studio tried to kill it.
It made the initial box office release is just under 500,000, but on DVD it's made over $9 million on DVD rentals.
Jesus.
So yeah. That's just DVD rentals alone. So like obviously from sales and streaming rights and all that, I'm sure it's made like even more than that in the end. So Mike Judge really did win in the end.
Yeah. Also, Terry Crews, basically strong-armed his way into the President Camacho role because like he auditioned like 3 times and they kept calling him back and they were like, okay, we'll let you know. And he was like, honestly, and like he got fed up and he was like, honestly, if there's a better actor for this than me, just cast them now. Like, just don't even bother calling me back or anything. Just cast them now. And they were like, okay, fine. Let's just get him. Let's just get him. And I think Terry Crews was the best choice for that because he's hysterical. But
Yep.
yeah, Idiocracy. Mike Judge wins in the end, as he probably will, because Mike Judge is well a low key genius. Well, or maybe not. He like went to school for physics and was an engineer for years before he decided to act to like do the awesome things that he's known for. So you could put that in your 2 cents, in your cap. See, I'm already getting dumber based on this podcast. Good job, good job. Anyway, we are Why Does This Exist? Thank you for listening to our show, and wherever exactly you are in digital media device land. I've been Chris,
And I've been Rob.
and as always, question everything.
Good night, everybody.
I like money.